All right, welcome everybody to tonight's school committee meeting for Wednesday, January 22nd. I'd like to call to order the meeting and have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any comments from the public tonight?
Okay.
Okay, before we start with our presentations and discussions, I'd just like to take a moment on behalf of the school committee to extend our congratulations to John Bucky. If anybody else would like to speak, this would be a great time and opportunity to, but we are very excited for this opportunity for you.
We will miss you.
And we will miss you.
But we do, understand, success follows success.
Thank you, John, for everything you've done. And I know you don't want to be embarrassed anymore, so, but thank you.
Steve?
Well, I've spoken to him previously about how much he'll be missed, but the opportunity is a good one. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We're lucky
And
to
thank
have
you
you.
for all you've done for our district. Thank you. Presentation, yes. Thank you. Presentations and discussions of interest to the committee. May I have our Veritas NHS presenter? We have John Carl and Paige Martineau.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, so we love Veritas. You guys do an amazing job.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions of us? I mean, we
Sure.
have a new crew basically this year at the top of the paper. We graduated our 2 editors last year, and we have 2 juniors, and that's great for us.
Have you speak right into
Okay.
this, only because I know it's really
Yes.
sensitive.
We're really excited because that means that next year we'll have some stability. The biggest challenge, I think, of the student newspaper in a school our size is to, have enough writers and enough staff, because the kids at that level are doing all kinds of things, sports, drama, they're off campus doing things. They've just got a number of different interests, so we're really competing for that group of kids that, likes to do a lot of things. So that's always our challenge, is to attract kids to the paper and keep some stability. So John Carl can talk to you a little bit about what goes on in the office. I mean, it's a student-run newspaper. I'm there to provide guidance when they need it. I do a lot of editing since I'm an English teacher, but it's their paper. They make the decisions, and I take a real back seat. So John Carl can talk to you a little bit about kind of what goes on, what it's like to be in Veritas office.
Yeah, I mean, I think she made a really good point that next year, 80% of our staff or so is going to be the same as this year, so that's going to be really helpful for us going forward. There's always a period of transition. You never know who's going to be able to provide what sort of work for you, and you've got that consistency that's going to be really helpful for us next year. And I mean, as for what goes on in the Veritas office, it's a lot of writing Veritas articles. But there's a lot of tea drinking. We drink a lot of tea. I think really what's important about Veritas is 2 things. I do think it's an important establishment, as in we provide the news for the school, and a lot of times we provide news that isn't covered anywhere else, and I think that's important. And I've seen several of our articles have an actual impact on the community. But I think really the biggest thing that Veritas does is we provide a community for these students, these like-minded students who enjoy writing and want to have a place where they can express themselves. And we're a really close-knit community for people to bond with and have that opportunity, which I think is very valuable in any school. And, when you're writing an article and you see it published, that's a really concrete, I don't know what the word for it is. It's really concrete, right? It's not like when you go out on the field and you play a sport, and you can lose the game, right? But when you're writing an article, if it ends up in the paper, which they all end up in the paper, that's really concrete, and you can look at that as, yes, that's my achievement as a creative student, as an innovative student. This is what I've done. And I think that's a really powerful thing. I think the community is really powerful as well.
I agree with
Thank
that.
you
It's
very
like
much.
confirmation that you're in print.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for you. So, do you have an assigned photographer, or can any student contribute pictures to the paper?
So any student can contribute pictures to the paper. Any student can contribute writing to the paper. We're very open-minded. We accept anything. And one of the things that we make sure is always an opportunity for students is we have an article list, right? And this is the list of things we need to get written for this issue. But the reality is that's probably only like 75% of the articles we get, because a lot of our articles come from students who have an idea, and they're like, I want to write about this. And so yeah, I mean, any student can contribute pictures, any student can contribute writing, and our most recent issue not our most recent issue, the one we're working on now, is going to come out soon. We had a student come to us and it was like, the figure skating team has a really important meet coming up, and we don't write about that by default because it's a club sport. And they were like, I want to write about that. And you're like, yeah, totally go for it, right? Because we want to give people that space to express themselves. So yeah, anyone can contribute writing or photography for sure.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Pauline?
Yes, first of all, congratulations on being on a team that's award-winning in
Thank
producing consistently great work. I'm kind of interested in what your process is. You touched on it a little bit, but can you just walk us through sort of the beginning of the cycle of producing the paper, what it looks like, how much work is put in, and the decision-making, and then how you end up with the printed version?
So it starts probably a month before the paper comes out. And the first step is Maisie, who's my co-editor, and I. We sit down and we make up the list of the articles that we want. And then for a week, it's article assignment, and that's when the kids come in and they sign up for their articles for what they're going to write. And we figure out what's going to be in the paper. And then kids have about 2 weeks to write, and the last week of the month, generally, sometimes it's the first week of the next month, is the week we spend actually putting the paper together. And that is, for the other 3 weeks, it's really light. It's a really light workload. Like, I probably put in 15 minutes a day. But on that fourth week, that's a really intense week. We call it press week. And so we'll come in and we have to read all of the articles that are sent in, which when you count all the entertainment stuff and the sports and everything, it's probably upwards of 40 articles. And so we come to the office and we read those articles, and we're here a long time. Like, we're here till the school closes most days on press week. And we spend probably the first 2 days reading the articles, and then we've got to make the paper, because we actually do the layout for the entire paper. We put it on page, and we use Quark. We use it's an app called Quark, and we figure out, okay, what article is going to be on the front page. We put it on the front page, we format it, make sure the font's right, the spacing. We always forget to indent the paragraphs. You can look at any issue of Veritas and you will find an article where the paragraphs are indented, because when you copy the articles in, it's really funny. The paragraphs just go away, and you have to go find all the paragraphs and put them back. So that's fun. And yeah, that's really the process. And then on the end of the week, we send it to Bucky to review, and then we send it off to print, and it prints really fast. It's probably 2 or 3 days to get it back.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Still my favorite newspaper.
Thank you.
Proud of what you guys do on a regular basis, yourself and everyone else on the staff. It's a tribute to you all.
Thank you so much.
I just have a really quick question.
Sure.
Is there a digital version? I'm sorry if I don't know that.
Yeah, no, there used to be a digital version. There isn't a digital version now. We forgot to renew, this is a really funny story, guys, you're gonna love this one. We forgot to renew the domain name for the website. And we were like, it's not gonna be a big deal, right? We'll just go get the website. Well, guess what? VeritasAct.com is now owned by a Chinese language gambling corporation. And that was if you look at the entertainment issue, which just came out, which the entertainment issue, for those who don't know, is just it's all funny, it's all humor, it's all fake news stories, which are super fun to write. And on the header where it usually says our website name, it says the Chinese own our website now. It's owned by a Chinese language gambling corporation, which I think is really funny. So no, there isn't a digital version anymore.
Well, here's a suggestion. You come up with a new name, like Whaler Toss.
Yeah. We should definitely get a new website. That's definitely something we should be doing.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
So you don't really have a picture of me with a sword in my hand, right, John Carl?
No, we had to. So that's also really funny. So that initially was just going to be a picture of you running with some funny caption on it.
Yeah.
But one of the people in our room saw it and was like, "Is that Joe Biden?" So it became a campaign ad for Joe Biden. And I actually had a lot of fun getting that sword in your hand. It really looks like you're holding something. You know?
All in good fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think
for
you're a
coming.
great superintendent to be pulled.
Oh, you're
I'm
very
sad you're leaving.
very kind. You know, we are all very proud of our student newspaper and recognize that it's a delicate thing, a school newspaper, and you know, giving students the freedom and trusting that they know how far to go with that freedom. And I would imagine that's something that you learn as you go along.
Dr. Bucky helps a lot with that.
Yeah, I think it's a hard thing for a principal to sort of let go a little bit, but then, you know, if he or she has to step in, so it's always a delicate thing, and I think you guys have walked that line very well over the years.
Thank you.
So keep up the good work.
We'll try.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Thank you
to
so
Paige
much.
as
Yes,
well.
thank you for presenting, John
Yeah,
Carl.
of course.
Thank you, Paige. That's exciting. All right, moving on to bullying update. We'll start with Dr. Bucky. That's okay.
Yeah. We'll let John come up, or Jen.
Yes,
or
please, or
whomever.
Jen.
Great.
There you go.
Oh, boy, stereo.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll start. There was a bullying report filed. Jen did an extensive investigation, and it was found not to be bullying. So very similar to last year when we came. Sometimes parents will file a bullying complaint report when it is perhaps more conflict or misunderstanding or a relationship that has gone sideways. And so I'll let Jen speak to the one that we worked on this year.
Sure, and I think it's difficult for parents when you have a child coming home very upset about something that's happened at school, whether real or perceived. It's difficult for a parent to experience that, and so I always appreciate when parents reach out to the school to share that information with us so that I can look into it and make sure that our students are well and safe and treating each other respectfully. A lot of the concerns that I get from parents and from students are about a student being unkind to them is usually what it results in, and then that is an education piece for both students and sometimes parents about how we treat one another at Nantucket High School and how to be respectful and use a kind voice and navigate difficult situations as a teenager, but respectfully and not harmfully. So in this particular case, we had two students who the parents didn't know the other student. So they're just really knowing how upset their own child is. But both students had rather large social skills deficit. So we had two students who were working at a deficit in their social skills and had a very nice friendship in the middle school that went sour at some point along the way and then was brought up to the high school and continued. And it was almost to the point where they didn't know how to interact with each other differently. They were sort of frenemies in a sense. That's how they got the connection with each other and didn't really know how to turn that around. So that became a real educational piece where I worked with both students to help them understand the conflict and then help them to develop social skills to navigate that conflict. And I'm happy to say at this point, both students have come to me recently and said, we're friends now. We sat at lunch together and so said hi to me, and so we work through that. But I always appreciate the worry that parents have that their child is being treated respectfully at school. So we're always mindful of that.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Zona, do you have any questions
I do
or
not.
comments? Holly?
I don't, thank you.
Steve?
Now, just a short comment. I remember when the bullying protocols and regulations came into effect, and the four most popular words for a year or two thereafter were, "She's been bullying me." It just became a buzzword for a lot of students, and their parents are even less involved. And I think it's great that you're able to work with the parents to educate them as well as to what bullying really is.
So was it the parents that first approached you, or the students themselves, or a student?
The parent, in this
Okay.
particular case, the parent first approached me. And it also is an opportunity for us to explain to parents what the definition of bullying is and what the components are, because sometimes parents will say, how is this not bullying? What do you think bullying is? And so it's explaining to them, these are the components of bullying, what would categorize it as bullying. And if it's not that, then we name it what it is, which is unkind behavior or a conflict, friendship conflict or peer conflict. But it's just explaining to students what bullying really means, and whether it is or is not bullying is what I take a lot of time to decide.
Thank you very much for being so thorough and providing that educational piece as well. I think that's very important.
I do too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Julie?
Julie?
Miss Lamoli?
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good, thanks for being here.
Sure. So we had one report filed. We are just wrapping up our investigation. We have not spoken to both sides in what we have found in our investigation. Jamie and I have been doing the investigation. We want to make sure we speak to both families in order to talk about the investigation and what was done so forth. So right now, we that's all we're going to say about it. It was a very difficult situation, and but we're monitoring as well. It was between basically two students, so we're just monitoring, and we want to meet with the parents to update and families.
Have you determined if it was in fact bullying or not? Or has it not gotten that far along?
Well, just in not talking to the families, I want to make sure that I'm respecting that I'm not announcing it out to everyone and everything without talking to the families and letting them know what our steps were.
No questions. Thank you.
Steve?
Oh.
So when was it first brought to your attention, and was it brought to your attention by a student or
Family.
a staff, a family member?
Yep,
Okay.
and it was the second week of December, end of the first week of December. So that also plays a part in it, the fact that we were off for 2 weeks.
Right.
However, nonetheless, the investigation has to proceed, as Jen said. You know,
Right.
you want to take into effect parties that were involved, or people seeing situations, teachers, etc. So it's a very difficult situation, particularly because students feel that their safety is not being taken into consideration or understood. And so we need to make sure that we're doing what we do in order to follow through and talk to the parties.
Now, how long does the process usually take? Like, what's a reasonable amount of time for the investigation, would you
Yeah,
say?
I think like 2 weeks for me in my experiences in the past. I mean, it's takes time, and throughout the day, when you have to investigate certain things, you have to make sure that these go into part of your already busy days.
Right.
You also want to monitor your aggressor, and you want to monitor your victim and meet with them and make sure that they are okay throughout this process, you know? So it's definitely step by step and takes time.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what we do for students who do come to you feeling that they are feeling bullied, and during that process while you're investigating, and they might feel threatened, uncomfortable, unsafe. How do you take care of them during the school day so they feel comfortable coming to school during the investigation period? How can you ensure that?
Yeah, so I think every kid is different, there's no doubt about it, and have certain needs. Working with guidance, no doubt, in having them support students as well as admin, I think comes across in a counseling sort of way, because middle schoolers, I mean, as much as we have older teenagers in high school, these middle schoolers, some are 11, some are 12, some are 13, so, you know, we want to make sure that we're providing them that safe feeling, comfort. It's hard.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Julie.
I think Donna's going to take the NIS.
Right. Donna Johnson is here from NIS. Hi. Welcome.
I'm here?
Absolutely.
All right. Yes.
Good exercise for us.
I'm here for Eve Marie tonight.
Thank you.
The change of the day, kind of. You get me. All right. At NIS this year, we've investigated 3 bullying incidents. They've been reported by both staff members and parents. Of those 3, 2 have been founded as bullying. When we find that bullying has occurred, we put support plans in place for the perpetrator, really just trying to find out why that behavior is happening and really support them. And we also put safety and support plans in place for the victims. So we've done that in both cases that were founded. We also yearly train our staff on bully prevention, identifying what bullying is, because I think it is a word, like Steve, that you said, that it's hard, because it can feel like conflict, but we're really looking for that imbalance of power when we're investigating bullying. So our staff are trained yearly, and our SEL curriculum supports all students every year with knowing what bullying behavior is, what to do when you're feeling bullied. So all 3 years that children are at NIS, they are getting that curriculum.
That's good.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Zona,
you.
questions or
Questions,
comments?
thank you.
All right.
Pauline?
Questions? Thank you.
Steve?
Were all 3 allegations against students?
Yes, they were student to student. One of them ended up being a conflict, but the other 2
Yeah, no, I
were
just,
student to
I'm
student.
loath to think that any of our staff members would be bullying, but I
Oh,
wanted to ask.
Gosh, no. No, not that I'm aware of, thankfully.
I don't think that would come through that channel, it would come through a whole
That would
different
come,
channel.
yeah. That would-
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Donna.
Thank you.
Kim, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm happy to say that the bullying goes K-12. So we've had those services in place where we've trained our staff, and SEL has been really active in our building, certainly in this formal way of weekly classes and lunch bunches and strategy groups and such. For 2 years, and prior to that it was lunch bunches and guidance and social work. So I'm pleased that we have those things in place. We had, from last year at this time to today, we have had 1 founded bullying case. It was 2 first graders, and it started, which takes us a little while to do that investigation, and it started in a love-hate relationship with these 2 children. They really enjoyed each other's company, but then also could say unkind things to one another. We kept track of the incidents as they were reported that would be unkind. It was verbal, more verbal comments. We kept track and used progressive discipline, and then it started to get bigger and more ratcheted up, I would say, for first graders, and a parent brought it to us. We had already marked a couple of incidences. And so then in reviewing all of this, we went back and determined it was bullying because the one child, it was mean behavior, it was repeated, it was targeted and on purpose, and there started to be this power imbalance. And all of that we needed to help. While one parent informed us of the situation, we have had to do some education over the years with parents about bullying for exactly what you said, Steve, that it is sort of the buzzword, but this really did turn out to be that way. And so we did, I'm just going to follow up on the questions you asked before in hopes that that provides you the answers. We did things like they were in the same classroom. So we spoke to all the adults and made them aware of the full situation and asked that they do everything in their power to keep them separated. So small groups didn't include each other, whole groups didn't have them together. They'd be apart from one another, and all the adults in every aspect of the child's day were aware of this for both children. In the end, we did have meetings with parents, and we did employ half-day suspension, and we did put a plan in place. This really was in May of last year, so we had a plan in place for placement that was separating the two children so that they would not be together, and move that forward. And it turns out both children no longer go to our schools, but we did have both parents in, and we also had the police come in and have a friendly school resource officer conversation, but explained the severity of this kind of behavior.
Thank you, Kim.
Interesting. Thank you, Kim.
Sona?
I'm good.
Pauline?
Yeah, I wanted to hear from everybody before I make this comment, but I think bullying is a sort of a tag word, and it became very popular. I think the education of our students and our parents is critical, because it may not come under the bullets of what bullying is, but that still doesn't mean that unkind behaviors are not happening within our schools.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important also for the bystanders, if they see nothing is getting done, it empowers that behavior and could frighten a lot of students. So I'm happy to hear that we do outreach among the schools to parents and to students, and it's part of our language in our SEL program. But I would also just remind everybody to, if it's not necessarily someone stepping forward, whether it's a parent or a child to disclose, to be paying very careful attention to the students who are alone on the playground, or alone at lunch, or alone and not being picked by a group for whatever the opportunity is in the classroom, because this world can be very unkind, and it may not come to our attention, but I would believe that there are probably cases that are going undetected, and I would just like to believe that we're doing everything we can in the education of students in school and of parents to keep an eye out and to speak up.
I would also just add to that, which I hope you find somewhat helpful, and I'm sure this is the case for all of our schools. In this process of investigation, we talk with other children, so witnesses to the situation, so that we are sending a message that this is not something that is going unaddressed or unmeasured or that we are absolutely taking what the kids have to say very seriously and considering all of those things, and we record those notes and we use that and keep it in our documentation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Steve?
Yeah, the first thing I'm going to say is going to sound very strange. Please wait for the because. I'm happy to hear that we're having some findings of bullying, because it indicates that we're not taking the process lightly. Things are not being swept under the rug as they were for many, many years. I'm not necessarily talking about here, but this was one of those things people did not want to acknowledge. And not only your investigations, but having actual findings that you're following up on, which is great, is actually good news in that sense, because it's supportive of the fact that we're doing our jobs.
It's validating that it exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with that. Unfortunate as it may be, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to second quarter budget update, Martin. Welcome.
Hi, Martin.
How are you? Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Second quarter, this is a kind of a strange number that we are under expenses, actual expenses this year as compared to last fiscal year at the same juncture, the end of the second quarter. We're a little over $249,000 under actual expenses. And there are several reasons for that. The payroll this year is being split in 27 payrolls as opposed to 26 last year. Even though the payroll has increased, as you will see about 3-4 lines below in the report, by a little over $61,000, it's usually increases by about 300 to 350,000 at that point. And you can look for a comparison on the 3-year comparison, the quarter as of the second quarter, and you see that between 2018 and 2019, the increase in the second quarter was $400,000. I just wanted to clear this so there is no misunderstanding. It's not just the payroll, but this is one of the reasons. We've also had some vacancies as well in some positions, as has been reported numerous times. The other expenses so far are somewhat on track. Professional services has increased. I reported in the first quarter that the busing contract this year is higher than we anticipated, and some other PD professional development activities have increased as well as compared to the last fiscal year. So I'll take questions on the school, or do I just move to the community school?
Let's do questions now so we can.
I don't have any, thank you.
I have a question, but maybe it's through actually Mike or to Mike. On the vacancies, at what point do we stop looking to fill those positions?
Not often do we stop looking. I think with the exception of the .4 technology person at the middle school, we just weren't getting anybody coming forward, and that would necessitate a change in the schedule at this point,
Right.
which just doesn't make sense. We did just hire a bilingual TA at Nantucket Elementary School that had been open for a while. So, we're getting there, but it's been a long haul, and it's been tough. I think the other thing is that we've had many long-term subs this year, too, an unusual amount that have affected our ability to provide services. So we've patched it as best that we can, but there are some challenging positions that open up that make it.
Thank you, Steve. Do you have any questions
I
for
do
Martin
not.
at this point? Okay. Thank you. Continue on.
The community school revenues continue a trend of increase. This time it's around $61,000. 50 of those are from the increase in appropriation from the town, and 11,000 are program revenues that have come ahead of last year's, and they're mostly due to extended day. Close to $20,000 increases there. A little over $2,500 in summer camp revenues, and these increases are somewhat offset by decreases in revenues from driver's ed, which are around $7,000, and a little over $9,100 in adult ed revolvers. Expenses also at this point are lower compared to last year, mostly due to a reduction of over $16,000 in forward commitments, or what we call purchase orders. So this is, I think, like I've pointed this at almost every quarterly presentation for the past year and a half. The community school is on solid ground, in my opinion. They're moving very well financially, and the brochure just came out, as you've probably noticed, and the organization has been doing great over the past 2 years.
Great, thank you. Zona, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Tracy, for doing such a great job, and the brochure looks fabulous.
Thank you, Pauline.
No questions. Thank you, Martin. And yes, thank you, Tracy.
I can't wait to get into this brochure.
I know.
You won't fit. Ha ha.
Mike.
So I do have a question, and I wanted you to maybe speak to the decrease in revenues for driver's ed. Is that something that is part of a cycle that we expect to see the second, and those revenues will increase in the third and fourth quarter?
I can defer to Tracy for the question.
I need to look into it more, but I think it has to do that we've added more classes. So we are now doing like 4 classes over school vacations. And so it's spreading out the number of classes. So when the revenue is coming in, it's coming in smaller amounts over a longer period of time. But
Okay.
I can look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And school lunch.
School lunch.
School lunch operates at a deficit of a little over $36,000. Very typical for the first and second quarter. The deficits usually run higher and then taper off towards the end of the year as revenues start coming in. This has to do with opening up the schools. Usually we have in the first quarter, as you've noticed, usually we have a big expense that hits the school lunch program in September. August, September, when the restocking occurs. So this compared to last year's 39,000 gives us a comfortable feel for the rest of the year to stay within the budgeted a little over $55,000 that we have with Chartwells. Sales in dollar terms improved by a little over $5,300, but with the caveat that there was one more operating day in this fiscal year as compared to last fiscal year. 73 to 72. Also, the free and reduced percentage, they fluctuate somewhat, but they've stayed above 35% steadily for the past 2 years, and they are at 42% at the end of the second quarter as compared to 37% last year.
Thank you. Zona.
I'm curious as to if we ever think about switching from Chartwells. I know when you go to the annual school committee convention, there's lots of food suppliers there. Just a general question.
I can speak to the previous procurement that we did in 2017. We had nobody bid for the program, so we went with Chartwells. There is an interesting opportunity that's arising now, but I think Mike can speak more to that. But we are currently in a contract. It's year 2, so we have until 2022 with Chartwells. We are on a yearly renewal basis because the contracts are issued for 5 years. What happens after that? We would like to see, personally, I would like to see more bids come in for the program, because that gives you an opportunity to explore not only financially how it's going to affect the program, but also nutritionally, menu-wise, and see what other providers may offer.
How does that bidding process work, Matt?
Well, I'm trying to think of the year that we went out first to Chartwells. It was probably
2012.
Yeah, okay, thank you. 2012. And prior to that, we had run our own food service, and you may remember that we were considerably in debt. Going to Chartwells has stabilized and I think provided some supports for Linda Peterson in running the program. But you typically write a request for proposal of 3 years. And then at the end of the 3 years, actually before the end of the 3 years, you go back out in anticipation again. The very first time we went out in 2012, we had 2 proposals at that time. And at the end of that first cycle and the second cycle since then, we've only had Chartwells. But we have talked to another company that I think is doing some interesting things. The challenge is when it comes down to it, and they look at the costs of running food service program on island, they tend to back off and not submit a bid.
Do you guys have a certain pool that you submit to? Is it through mass or is it?
It isn't. We open it up, but Martin, you can speak to that.
It goes on a procurement site. We work with Diane very closely in the contract, and it's advertised within the state. And we had some requests for the documents, but we didn't have anybody else bid. There was simply requests. I did not field a phone call or had a conversation with another provider, which was, again, I think it's slightly disappointing. You always want to choose, to be able to choose,
Right.
obviously. You don't want to be bound to a supplier or provider. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, I'm not sure who might have this answer. What would be the process we would have to go through if we wanted to look at changing the produce, the quality, and the choice of purchasing food outside of the state contractors? Is that something that other districts have done? And I'm going to just come out with it, that the quality of food that is provided to our schools across the state is actually, in my opinion, low quality food, the fruits and vegetables. And so I'm wondering if there has been any precedent set in other districts where they've actually been able to be successful, to be able to buy, for instance, locally and buy from, and I know that we do get some ingredients, but we're limited. So I'm just curious at this point, as we're having this conversation, where could we begin? Where should we begin if we wanted to look at improving the quality of the food that our children eat?
Well, you made the comment that from what you see across the Commonwealth, not just in Nantucket.
Because I believe that
Okay.
it's all state contracts and we're tied to the state.
Right. And I think you start with your current provider and you let them know if the school committee is not happy with the quality. I think they will look for some specific information from you or from the school committee on that. And so you would start with your present provider. Then as you go back out in 2 years, you're going to have those conversations with anybody new who's considering applying for, or submitting a proposal.
I feel like this conversation has come up in the past, and can you correct me, Martin, if I'm wrong, but Chartwell's is not allowed to source food locally or get food donated. Is that correct?
they are allowed to source food
Okay.
food locally, and there is also a clause in the contract that they do, but the clause is so broad that they can consider a farm that's not on island to be a source of a locally grown food. They're not bound to purchase locally on Nantucket. And in the past, there was discussion of a credit card being provided to the food service directors for such purchases. This is a bigger question to ask Chartwell's. The answer that I've received whenever you ask why they don't source, for instance, more organically grown produce and food is it's cost prohibitive. So, I mean, their products do satisfy the state requirements. So that's all I can say at this point. It's not. I don't think it's something that's contract prohibited for
Right.
them to source locally.
But donated food.
Donated food is a little different because they have to make sure that it falls under certain criteria, and it is has been properly examined and so it covers all the FDA, all the requirements.
Thank you.
So.
We can
Maybe if I
begin
could-
that conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to be part of that conversation if we could have a.
Okay. I will
Separate
raise the question
conversation.
with the food service director and see if the
That'd be
regional
great.
manager can be involved. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Steve, any questions or comments? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, committee discussions and votes to be taken. May I have a vote to adopt fiscal year 2021 budget?
Madam Chair,
Steve
You need the
Sordeman.
motion on the table first before you can
You've got to put the motion, you've got to read the motion too, Jen, I think.
oh, I'm sorry, so
Right.
there needs to be a motion to approve, and then I wanted
You
to
can
know what the
you can amend
process
it.
was. Okay.
So move for the motion.
You have to read the motion?
I'll read after.
Okay. So moved.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Of what? I've gotten lost.
No, I think you want to read the motion
I was gonna read it
that they're
after
making,
they-
but you
okay.
you don't read it after they vote
Okay,
on it,
all
because
right.
his amendment will come before
Sure.
that vote.
Okay. On motion duly made and seconded, it was voted to recommend $32,346,642 for the FY 2021 Nantucket Education Public Appropriation, Article 8 of the 2020 Annual Town Meeting of Taxpayers. The public school total budget appropriation is recommended at $31,796,642. $26,485,636 for payroll, and $5,311,006 for operating expenses, an additional $550,000 community school appropriation for payroll, and to authorize use of the school department accounts as listed.
So
Discussion.
moved. Oh,
And then you have discussion.
Yep, so discussion, debate.
Or motion to amend.
Yep.
Now's the right time. I am going to move to amend to increase the budget by $70,000, which is what we've been listing as a cost of a full-time equivalent teacher in all of our requests. I'm not sure whether you want me to give my reasons first or follow Robert's Rules of Order, which are motion, second, discussion.
Mm-hmm. Is there a second to his motion?
Well, I haven't made the motion
I
yet.
thought you just did.
I will.
Okay.
I move to amend our budget to add one math teacher at Cyrus Pierce Middle School at a cost of $70,000.
Is there a second?
I just want to make mention that that is only the salary, right? Because
Yes.
at the meeting, it was mentioned that it doesn't include.
Well, but I have information
I
about
need a
that.
second, though.
I'll
If there's a
I'll
second.
second the motion for
For
purpose of
discussion, thank
Okay.
you.
My reasoning for this is that as we look at the math scores for the middle school, they're still significantly lower than the English language arts scores. That was in Julie's presentation. Although there have been some small improvements, they're just not catching up to where these kids need to be. Prior actions for the last 3 or 4 years haven't been successful. I'm not suggesting that adding bodies guarantees success, mind you. And I can't propose what this position would be. Could be a classroom teacher, could be an interventionist, could be a math coach. That would be for the administration to decide. That doesn't fall within our purview, as it were, to decide what is done with it. The cost can be covered by what remains of the excess tax levy. The financial director last night advised me, us, I guess, he said it out loud, that it had been reduced, that excess levy potential, but it has not been reduced below what we would be asking for. I acknowledge there's a town cost as well for health, but we had that discussion with him, and when you put this 70,000 together with what he estimates for the health care coverage, it still falls within available, I forget what the official term is, levy availability. I'm gonna call it. So, because we just have not had success the last 3 or 4 years, I think we need to try something different. Questions, comments, concerns?
Any more discussion?
I do. I think I appreciate your passion, and I appreciate your commitment to improving the math, and I don't deny that we all want to see increased scores across the board in our math and our ELA and science. I feel that there are processes in place, and as a school committee, we oversee and vote on the full budget, the bottom line, not the individual line items as such, although we do sit and listen to the presentations, but we also, I believe, I need to respect the process and the work that has gone into preparing this budget, which has happened through school council, our teachers, our principals, community forum, to where we are tonight to vote on the final budget after presenting at FinCom. So it's not that I don't hear you, I do, but I feel that this is the work of our staff, our administration, to go forward at the end of the final budget to make the decisions that they deem necessary and prioritized for their individual schools. That's my position.
I have to agree. I feel there is a process that we need to respect. I also feel that, you know, everybody has their passion or something that they feel is supersedes, it is most important, and you know, for me it would be the social and emotional wellness of our students, and I could be advocating for another, you know, social worker or guidance counselor, but again, I respect the process, and I am not willing to ask for more money or going to ask for more money to provide extra social and emotional support. So I mean, I feel like we all have our passions. We all have, you know, what we feel should take priority. And so I have to agree with Pauline in that we have to respect the process coming from our school councils, our staff, and our administrative team.
And my concern with that, if I can express it, is that we don't get to interact with those people. We don't know. I did ask all of the administrators if there was anything else they really wanted, and they all had something. So I believe, well, first of all, it is our prerogative to set the budget. And technically speaking, we can do this. I hear what you're saying. We could all find something. But there was an increase requested for social in our budgets. And I feel for our middle school students, I know things are improving. I know that NIS is going to be sending us better prepared students. But that, in a sense, means that we're writing off the kids that we already have in the middle school by not providing them the additional support that they need. And unfortunately, what we've been doing has not solved the problem. So.
Thank you, Steve. Any other comments?
Move the motion. I believe that's the official term.
Move the motion. All in favor
Of the amendment.
of the amended motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye.
So you're back to the motion.
Okay,
as
so may I have a
originally.
vote to adopt the fiscal year 2021 budget as stated? Do you want me to read it again?
I don't think you need
I
to
don't think
read
you
it
need to
again.
do
Okay.
that, no.
Okay.
Second, yeah.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
May I have a vote to approve? the-
Opposed?
Those opposed.
I'm sorry.
You didn't
You have
Yes,
to ask
I'm
for
sorry.
opposition.
Sorry. All opposed?
I am opposed.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
And I would appreciate it. I don't know how it happened last year, I abstained last year for much the same reason, and it was reported at town meeting that the school committee unanimously voted this budget. I hope that does not happen this year.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. May I have a vote to approve the donation from Community Foundation for Nantucket on behalf of the Will Brown Fund to adopt a lunch tray program in the amount of $500?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A vote to approve a donation from Island Lumber Company to NHS Wood Shop in the amount of $2,400.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve donation from Phil and Kim Marks to NHS Accidentals and Naturals in the amount of $1,000.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve January 7th, 2020 meeting minutes.
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
January 14th public hearing minutes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Transfers and invoices.
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Superintendent's report, draft calendar 2021.
This should be fun.
Yeah, so we are up to draft number 9 of the calendar. You will see a couple of slight changes here. We are going back to our, I guess, tradition of having 4 in-service days before Labor Day and the start of school on the 8th, which is very late this year. One change that you will see is in October. We are suggesting, instead of a Wednesday half-day release, that we do it Thursday coupled with the October 9th, which is Columbus Day. And that way, parents would have a long weekend. And it also allows consecutive professional development over the half-day on the 8th and on the 9th. And I have floated that by the union leadership. It's something that really I look at and wonder why I didn't think of this some time ago, because it doesn't chop up the week as much as what we had before. So I think, and we're not bringing this to you for a vote tonight, but we will bring it back to our respective faculties and get their input. The other thing in this that is, debated is December 23rd. That is a day that the staff has said that they really would like. And of course, you know that every day that we add pushes the end out. Personally, I'm against having the 23rd off. I do understand why people are saying that for travel and Christmas. I understand it perfectly well. My worry is that if you only have 2 days that week, the 21st and 22nd, it's going to be easier for parents to say, I'm taking the whole week. And that we could see an effect on attendance. But I think it's one of those things that really has good arguments on both sides. You'll note that it does push the last day of school to the 25th of June, and that's without snow days. So you're pretty much assured, in my mind, of rolling over to that last week. And so, this happens in the years that Labor Day is on the 7th, and you don't start until the 8th. You know you're going to push that back. So just want you to look at that, know that we're going to bring it to the faculty for any last input, and then we will bring a draft to you for a vote. This is late, and parents want to know, and we've sort of been looking at a variety of things with the input of the teachers and administrators.
May I ask a question? I've actually been contacted by faculty and parents and community members and private school folks. So this is really a hot topic, I think, for a lot of people. One of the comments that I've heard consistently was the 23rd of December. So I'm glad to see that
Yep.
that is on this version of draft 109. No, just joking.
Comments in favor of having school that
Yes.
day? Okay.
Of being off,
Being off.
because of, as what Mike said, the travel, and also the focus of the students being in school the day before, really thinking how are we really going to focus our students with the holiday coming up right behind. The other question I would ask you, if you would consider when you go back to our faculty, is asking them to consider school starting before Labor Day.
We have.
Okay, because the comments that I have been, the comments I have received, and I also think, I did receive some comments to consider camps and also summer school, is that who I have heard from felt like it would be something that should be considered to go back and push up your in-service days into August, because when you're ending the school year so late in June, it gives our staff very little time to turn around and prepare for either camps, for parents to provide care for camps, as well as giving our staff a break in between that and then following camps and summer school in after July 4th. It's just the feedback I've received.
The
and so-
feedback you've received, I think, is the minority opinion. And I've heard from the union leadership, and they discussed this with their constituents, and it was overwhelmingly against that. And we could not accomplish that with contract language. So that is not a possibility.
Yeah, it would
Okay.
create contract issues.
So
Okay.
just,
It is
and
too
it's,
bad
we've
because-
examined it, but the word that I have, and I wasn't in attendance at that meeting, but that it was overwhelming against starting before
And we
Labor
were
Day.
told well-attended,
So,
Okay.
contrary to
I'm
my
only
recollection
doing
of
my
most
due
union meetings.
diligence.
No, I
of
appreciate that.
what-
No, that's fine. I have a couple of questions, and the second one is interrelated. The first one, Mike, hasn't there been a suggestion that the half-day on April
28th go to
28th
April
be
7th.
moved up to maybe the 7th of
Yep.
April?
Yep, that has been recommended.
That's,
Because
put that
why
in
have a
draft 10?
vacation week and then a day right after a
Yeah.
vacation? So that would probably go into draft
To the
10.
7th. And then the interrelated question
Let's hit double
is,
digits.
regarding the December 23rd and June 25th. June 25th is already listed as a school day. It's listed as an early release, but that Friday is already listed as a school day.
What do you mean listed? It is a school day. The 25th,
The Friday.
the Friday,
Right.
would be the 180th day.
So if, and this is the interrelation part, if we were to want to make the 23rd of December
Tw-
a holiday, doesn't that automatically carry us into June 28th?
No, I've done the count, and going to school on the 23rd of December means that 180 is on the 25th of June.
But that's what I'm saying.
Not going to school on the 23rd. So this calendar has the 23rd, even though I'm not
I gotcha.
necessarily in favor of it.
Okay.
It does have the 23rd as the vacation
So
day.
draft 10 shows it as a vacation day.
Yeah.
And the last day is still the 25th.
5th. And I have to change it in the
Okay.
middle section, because it says the 24th. I have to change that to the
Gotcha.
25th.
So may I just ask the process, so this now will go back to all 4 schools to their staff meeting, and then it goes to the union, or how does it work?
No,
Go to
this
union
will come
first,
back
or-
to you. We will talk to the union and teachers. We take input from the teachers. And I think we've sought extensive input and reacted to that input. They don't have the authority to determine the calendar,
Right.
but the language in the contract does determine the starting of
After
the
Labor Day.
of after Labor Day.
So you'd have to get a contract agreement to
Right.
amend the
And they're not
contract.
willing to do that.
Okay,
That's what they were saying.
Right.
okay,
Strongly.
okay.
It's just one of those things that comes about,
I don't know how many years, but it's, and we just have to accept, and people are going to have to accept and hope that you don't get hit with a year of lots of snow days, because you could be going to school in July.
Stop saying that.
Or you would go into April, you'd go into your April vacation,
Yeah.
and that's a
How
possibility.
late can you do a delayed opening and still have it count as a school day? Is there a state regulation on that?
So I don't, as I look at a delayed opening, I don't game it trying to figure out how we make it into a day. It's really about the weather conditions and whether it's safe. I understand your question.
You're couching it with that first.
But,
politically
so
correct answer.
we have used a few times a 2-hour delay. The 2-hour delay is the easiest because people can wrap their heads around, okay, what time will the buses be here? Exactly 2 hours later than they would have been here. If you start getting into a 90-minute delay or a 2.5-hour delay, it really plays with people's minds in trying to compute, okay, what does that mean? So by all rights, you should have, I don't think it's mandated, but typically you would be looking at a 4-hour day, and you need to have lunch. You need to serve lunch,
Okay.
okay? So that's been our,
And you've done that a couple of times.
we've done that a couple
Yeah.
of times, and that's really saved it, because it's not unusual on Nantucket to have that early morning, and then it
Melts
starts
away.
to
Right.
melt away.
We'll give some time to clear the roads.
Right.
Well, and for daylight to
Yep.
manifest itself as well. I mean, sunrise technically this time of year isn't until 7 a.m.
Right.
So we'll bring that back to you, and we'll probably get the input in the next week or two from staff.
Thank you.
Thanks.
FinCom?
FinCom update, you were all there, so it was, I think, the template that we use is well received. I, as you know, said to FinCom that I appreciate their approach to this. I think they had done their homework, they asked questions, and it's always nice when they throw that softball at the end of
Yeah.
what else would you add if you,
If they
You know,
gave
if
you
you
another
could.
1.5 million.
Yeah, that was
They
a-
make it a big number.
So,
Great, thank you. Subcommittee work group updates. Zona, do you have any? No?
Just to give a little update for Nantucket Education Trust. We met last week, and Mike provided us with an update for our second year now going, we're taking our sophomores, Follow Your Dreams across the Sound. Last year, you may remember, we took 85 students to visit a college. This year, we are taking students to Bridgewater State and also UMass Dartmouth. And so I believe enrollments have already gone out, registration for that, that trip. I hope to be on that trip with them. But Nantucket Education Trust was really fortunate. We did a year-end letter a year ago asking for requests. And we also received additional money this year to support the effort. So we're very happy to be partnering and being able to offer this for our sophomores. And it's just going to give an opportunity for students who might not necessarily be going off and doing college trips to give them an opportunity to see what it's like. And I think some of the feedback we got through a survey that Tracy Roberts helped put together was students that after they had visited the college that Some students reported that they realize they need to work harder. They also saw this as a goal, an achievable goal, which is exciting, and it gave them an opportunity to get to see a campus, which they might not necessarily have been able to do. So it's a program that I know our committee feels very proud of and glad that we can help the school with that.
Thank you. Steve, do you have any?
Well, negotiations are ongoing. We have not recently signed off on any particular issues, but we have had a number of clarifications that I think will allow us to move forward. And our meeting yesterday was very short because of FinCom, so not much progress, but we're all still friends.
Okay, well, that's great.
I do want to mention that through the Cape Collaborative, we're having a legislative breakfast next Friday morning. I don't know, Mike, were you intending on attending that?
No.
Okay.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, it's in Nostrville. And then they also are having a presentation for Boston State University that does courses for our teachers. They're having a presentation of what's coming up next Friday afternoon as well. So I'll be over there all day on Friday.
Thank you. I received something. Did you get something from Jim Hardy on policy changes? Did you see anything?
I haven't received anything
Okay.
recently.
It came on the mask.
Well, I saw
Listserv.
something
Yes.
about the new regulations about reporting how we're spending certain monies.
Yeah, no, this was specific policy, so I will
Oh, I haven't
forward
looked at
that to
that
you.
one
Okay.
yet.
And
Okay.
might be something we need to get together.
Yeah, you're going to go over
Great.
agenda.
So, well, Joel's not here tonight. We're missing him. And our agenda for next meeting, February 4th.
Yeah, if you look at on the horizon, I think should you desire, you could combine meetings in February. There's not a lot on the agenda. Quiz Bowl is not going to challenge us this year. I was notified by Kate Hickson.
I've been swatting up for no reason.
Goodness.
I suppose we could have a competition between the school committee and the administrative team, but
Oh, that would be fun.
so that won't be a part of the 18th. So you may want to have just one meeting on the 18th if you so desired.
Well, we
Or
haven't
one meeting on the
accomplished
4th.
approval of the district improvement plan, have we? That was listed for yesterday/today.
You know what? I'll put that down. Thank you, Steve. That's a good point. I will
For
add that.
whichever date so we would move everything that's on the 4th to the 18th.
Well, why couldn't we do it on the 4th?
Yeah, so maybe my recommendation would be to keep the 4th, and then after that meeting, discuss whether or not we want to have a meeting on the 18th,
Ye-
or a workshop, or a, sorry.
Horseshack. The problem with that is that you can't have We Are Nantucket, which is the CPS 7th grade thing that Adrian has done where she's interviewed famous people. And it's a wonderful production, and I would love to have her bring 2 or 3 students. And
Bump that to March, couldn't we? I think I'm not going to be here on the 18th.
okay, or you can go in between the 4th and the 18th if you wanted to. You
Now,
you could go the
Nantucket
11th.
In the past was
but-
like a documentary.
Yes.
Is she intending to show that? Are we intending to view
They
the
will.
whole thing?
No, I would have them select 2 or 3 students
Segments.
and show that. It's too long to do the whole thing,
But
but
they play it at the Dreamland, and it's
They do.
definitely worthwhile.
It is.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
pretty
I
incredible.
went to the first one.
yeah. So, if you want to try to do the 4th, I just don't know if you wanted to do the 11th.
I'm open to suggestions.
And-
Anybody?
and we would,
I like to keep me personally would like to keep the 4th, and we'll move We Are Nantucket around depending
To
on,
March, maybe.
yeah.
I won't be here on the 11th because that's the day of the college trip.
Oh, right,
Ah.
About the 4th.
right.
I'm here on the 4th.
and we're not looking into March at all yet, huh?
well, I mean, it's on the back, and you can see some of the things. We usually have Friends of
Yep.
Nantucket Public Schools, FUMPS here, and an update on student support services.
It doesn't seem to overwhelm.
Well,
If we don't have We Are Nantucket, you really don't have much of a meeting on the 4th either.
But can we check
We could-
with Adrian and see if they can be ready on the 4th? I mean, if they've been planning on the 18th, I would not want to.
I'm sure we could ask.
Can I say, what is the workshop superintendent's evaluation tool? What do you mean?
Well,
What is that?
I usually give that to you in February because you are required to do that by March 31st. So it's just a flag for me to make sure that you start working on that.
Okay.
And then the SC self-evaluation, we usually put it in your packet, although you don't you don't report on it right away. So,
So
I
it
would-
is a short.
I would ask that we would probably want to put the calendar on for a vote somewhere,
Yes.
because that's going to
Okay.
be. we're
well,
gonna
we can
be
do
waiting on
district improvement plan and calendar on the 4th if you want.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll check with Adrian about her group, or I'll have Julie check with Adrian.
Yeah, because the calendar seemed pretty straightforward. Hopefully, the staff has no further
Wow.
significant suggestions. We'll see.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Move to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.